All right, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Boulders and Heretics podcast. I'm your host, Dan, and joining me on today's episode, we have Keir Edward
Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks for having me on, Danny.
and Nick Steves.
Hey guys, good to see you again.
So, last weekend, we held our very first Boulders and Heretics Fall Bash, and with me is the two top spots and a recurring member, Nick Steves, but unfortunately didn't hit that top spot.
Salt in the wound, buddy.
He had
So,
his
yeah.
he had his time in the sun. He won the last two before that, if I'm not mistaken, right? Level up was February, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know if I was at that one.
Yeah, you played Alex, top table. It was like 1
Oh,
point.
no. I was playing my guard at that game.
Yeah, you played guard that game, but you won that, didn't you?
No. Alex beat me.
Alex won by what? No
Yep.
way. Yeah, I thought you won. Okay, all right.
Hey, but still, you're placing top, so you're going to be a name to be known around the area. So big congrats on both of you guys for taking first and second place at the tournament. So in this episode, unlike the last one, and where we kind of did like a separate interview each, I decided to bring them both on at the same time and kind of just go each round and each opponent and go through your guys' list all in one shot. So you know what? Starting with you, Nick, on second place. What was your list and what did you run?
Well, for those of you who tuned in last time for the World's Edge tournament in St. John, I changed 0 things. I just ran the exact same army, simply because of laziness for the most part. I mean, it worked out in St. John. I wasn't just trying to rock it because it worked, but
Not broke, right?
yeah, it's not. Yeah, exactly. So, Tech Priest Ominous, who's rocking the Holy Order, the Divination of the Magos, which is pretty much the auto Warlord pick for AdMech, and Auto Chaos of Arkham Land for his relic, as is the only good relic. Well, good being a debatable term for this. And the next to him would be a Tech Priest Manipulus, filling up my other HU slot in detachment of a battalion. Manipulus was rocking another Warlord trait, being the Prime Hermeticon to reroll hits in the fight phase, and he just rocks with the 9 monks that I had, the Fulgurite Electro Priests. My troops were 4 units of Vanguard, 2 of which had enhanced data tethers, and both of those units were in a transport. And the idea was to have them jet forward for forward objectives, and if people don't wipe them, then they'll have a better chance of surviving with the reroll morale test. And 1 unit of 5 Cataphoron Breachers. They're my main anti-tank source, and also OBSEC beefy troops. Fast attack, I had a unit of 6 Cerberus Raiders, which are one of the most cancerous units in AdMech right now. And a unit of 5 Teraxi Teraxi
Sterilizers.
That's the one.
Yeah, at least somebody knows the list.
Yeah.
You should take a second and explain to people who don't know why Raiders are so cancerous.
Okay. So Raiders have 3 wounds apiece, which is already pretty rough.
Gross.
They have 12-inch movement, but they get a 9-inch movement before the game starts. And they have 18-inch range, so they can pretty much get to most of the board, depending on... I save them for last replacement. So they have the sniper special rule called the Eye of Cerberus, which works out as pretty much the same as every other sniper ability, just you can target characters and 6s to wound cause additional mortal wounds. They have 2 shots apiece with their rifles, which is pretty strong, so unit of 6 of them give me 12 sniper shots. And then me rocking Mars gives me access to Wrath of Mars. So on 6s to wound, that causes an additional mortal wound as well. So every 6 to wound with a Raider does 2 mortal wounds in addition to a Strength 4 -1 rifle. And so typically it's enough to gimp any character I shoot at.
If your character has the infantry keyword and he gets to it, it did.
It's not even infantry. I could kill like bikers.
Yeah.
I can do a serious amount of damage to anything that's not a monster, effectively. And they have that stratagem where if someone charges at them, they can just run away.
And you fail your charge.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could technically still make it if I stay within your charge range, but unlikely that I'll do that.
Actually, here's a question about that. I was kind of wondering. So, say for example, I announce my charge. Can you declare to Overwatch then run away?
No, because I think it's like
It's like a reaction
a
where the second
reaction.
it's announced, you have to move.
Yeah, and
It's
it has to be the first charge that's declared against them that I have to use this stratagem right away.
Okay.
yeah. I think the wording's something like the first time this unit is declared as a charge target.
Yes.
So it's
Yeah.
like at that
Okay.
instance, you have to decide to do it or not.
Okay. Well, because I was gonna say, because if you just stand there, fire Overwatch, then run away, that'd be nasty as all hell.
Yeah, they don't need any more help being good.
Yeah, so then I had the sterilizers. Typically in D-Strike, I'm just plopping them down where I need, engaging all friends or something along those lines.
12-inch flamers.
12-inch flamers don't hurt. Yeah, they don't hurt me at least. They hurt others.
Yes.
So then for heavy support, I had 2 Scorpius disintegrators with the Belarus energy cannons for ignoring line of sight. Elites, I had a unit of 9 full-grade Electro Priests. Transports, I had 2 of them, both being the Scorpius Dune Riders. And then lastly, my Flyer, which is the other argument for most cancerous unit, being the Archaeopter Fusilier, which is the bomber variant. That thing does some serious work or some serious distraction, one or the other.
And it's not that expensive in points either, is it?
It's like 130 points or something along those lines.
No, that's nothing for a distraction like that.
Yeah, it's
So
pretty.
I know I chased it in our practice game, and I did 3 wounds to it.
Yeah, because I mean it benefits from Shroud Song, so it has a 2-up armor, and a -1 to hit because it's a flyer.
Mm.
So, and it can shut off auras, as Keir is well aware of now, and
Mortal wound auras, feel no pain auras. Sorry.
yeah.
And then there's that mortal wound bomb on the vehicles, and just for anybody out there that runs the Malefic, was it the Blade Haulers for Death Guard? When you have a unit of 3, it hurts.
Yeah.
It really hurts.
Yeah. Keir is rocking a unit of 3 speeders, which is the same thing as your Blade Haulers.
Well, might as well explain exactly how it works, just so people kind of know how much hurt that they're looking for if they have a unit of 3 vehicles.
Okay. So the Admech Flyer is really good because it can pivot mid-flight, and it's kind of like the Eldar Flyer, but the Eldar Flyer pivots at the end of its movement. The sucker can fly, pivot, and keep flying. It also pivots before it moves, so it can turn twice. So when it drives over a unit, I can pick a unit that goes underneath my plane at any point in time during its movement. And at the end of the movement phase, I drop bombs on them. For anything that's not a vehicle or a monster, I drop 1 D6 or equal to the amount of models in said unit, up to 10. And on a 4+, I do a mortal wound. And then against vehicles, I drop 3 dice. So on a unit of vehicles, it just takes 3 vehicles to give me 9 dice worth of 4+ mortal wounds on them. And I've been rolling really well on the mortal wound results too. So
I'm pretty sure you did 8.
I did 8 to you out of 9.
I know mine was at least 6 or 7 if it wasn't for discussing resilience.
Yeah.
And just to simplify the way the movement works, basically it moves 50 inches, and if you're within 50 inches, there's like a 99.9% chance that it can fly over you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now that flyers can fly off the table safely, it's actually a bit of a move.
So if you were on the board,
he got you.
It's another unit I tend to try to place last, just for counter deployment purposes.
Counter deployment,
But yeah, that be the army.
All right. So, how about your list, Keir?
Well, the last thing I don't like to say about Nick's list that I think makes it do really well at 1500 is he has so many drops that most armies can't really wait out to see where he puts those 2 things, the Raiders and the Flyers. So, I'd be hard pressed to believe that any army could, because your army has like 15 or 16 drops, isn't it? It's quite a bit if I remember correctly.
5 troops, 2 transports, the plane, 2 fast attacks, and the HQ.
It's like quite a bit for a 1500 point game. Like 10 or 11 right there. I think my army's like 5 or 6, but anyway. But just like, okay, here's my stuff. Just don't even. I'm not even gonna bother counting counter
Just
deploying.
just be gen. Just be gen.
Yeah, this is get this out of the way. Anyway, yeah, my list. So it was just a single battalion of White Scars. My warlord was a jump pack captain with the Teeth of Terror relic, Chogorian Storm, and Imperial Sword. So I used the Tempered by Wisdom stratum to give him an extra White Scars warlord trait. Then I had Crucero Khan. Yeah, pretty sure he's an auto taken White Scars list. That +1 to wound aura is just too good. And then I did a jump pack chaplain. Spent an extra CP to give it Benediction of Fury. Spent a CP to make it Master of Sanctity. Spent a CP to give it Hero of the Chapter. Wise Orator. So yeah, the thing was just juiced straight up, and I was taking Recitation of Focus, which was +1 to hit. Which synergizes with my Plasma Inceptors, which we'll get into later. And then Litany of Faith, because I knew there's going to be T-Sense players and Grey Knights and Nyx Admech and stuff, so I just felt better, having that 5-up against mortals starting the game. For my troop options, I went with 4x5 Assault Intercessors, 2 of which I started in Encirclement. I had to spend the 2 CP anyway, so it didn't make sense to do Strategic Reserve, and I found they were just they're really good for just dropping in late game and putting them where I needed to do things to help win me some fights elsewhere. I also ran a Judiciaire, and if you played against Space Marines, you know that it basically has a 6-inch aura to make you fight last. It hits like a truck. It's just a problem to be around. Like if you're in engagement range and that thing's around, you're in for a bad time. And then I had 4 Plasma Scepters, 2d3 Assault Plasma weapons that you can overcharge, which is why I took the +1 hit on the Chaplain, so I could safely overcharge, which is now gone. RIP. But that blast came in handy in a lot of games. And then I had a squad of 3 Landspeeder Tempests, and they're just nasty. There's a strat to let me treat heavy weapons as assault weapons. And then if they do an advanced move, they have to move between 20 and 35 inches, and then they become -1 to hit. And then I can pop that stratagem, and they can still shoot their 3 assault cannons and their 6 salvo launchers, and they are White Scars, so then they can charge as long as they charge a fly unit afterwards. So they're basically just like turn 1, no matter what, they're in your face. They probably pick up a unit, and then if you have something that flies and I can make the charge, I'll try to make it just to stop that thing as well. And then lastly, I just had two impulsors, one of which had Con, one of which had the Judiciaire, and both carried a squad of 5 Assault Intercessors.
That rounds out your entire list.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. So myself, I didn't actually get a chance to play, but I definitely got to see you guys in action, and neither list I really thought I'd be standing up against with what I had, hence why you guys took a couple top spots. The only unfortunate thing is you guys didn't actually get to face each other in the tournament at all.
Yeah, it was a bummer.
But you guys did get a couple of game or two beforehand, didn't you?
Yeah, on the Thursday, we had an epic showdown. It was a good game, dude.
It was a very close game.
Yeah, I think we were both feeling pretty good about our list after that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we got to sort of see what the Raiders are very difficult to stop. And the priests, if they can get a unit, the monks, as you call them, if they get that 3-up invul going, and then he buffs it to a 2-up invul, they're just like there to stay. And it kind of showed him how I like to use my impulsors. I basically in all 3 of my games, I try to nominate things that I think are going to be problematic for my list, and pretty much just body them with impulsors, just keep falling back and charging them, because if you can cause things to have to fall back or engage them, it really limits what they could do in the following turns. So I think that was like a big part of how I was playing my list. The impulsors, I think, are just so annoying to deal with.
All right, so we'll definitely have to, maybe one of these days, if we can ever get a streaming up, we might get you guys in with a match to kind of see once and for all who would have been the winner of that.
Dun, dun, dun.
Alrighty, so you know what? How about this? Let's jump into each round, and you'll pretty much talk about your games. Just kind of go from there. So what we'll do is I have the rounds up here on BCP. So essentially, first one, Keir, your opponent was Ian Osborne playing Grey Knights. So talk a little bit about that match.
Well, so you call out deep strikes up front. I kind of, once we went over the lists, I feel like I had a pretty good idea what I needed to do to win that game. He had one big squad of 10 Terminators, and he set them all up, and then everything else was just MSU all over the place. Now, Grey Knights being Terminators, they're relying on gate to get them around. So right off the get-go, I kind of knew that the two things I had to stop were dealing with his gating units to just basically slow him right down. And I had, between my Landspeeder Tempest and my Inceptors, I had a lot of blast that I could put into that 10-man Terminator squad every turn to just sort of pick away at it. So that's pretty much what I did. He put it all in one corner. I was able to get an impulsor charge on them, and then follow up with some assault intercessors after putting some shots into them. And then I just beat him on mobility. I just kept track of the psychers that had Gate of Infinity, and I just made sure I had something in their face to just stop or make them waste that, because if they're engaged, they can't fall back in psych, right? So if I can engage him, he's limited to gating whatever's right there. He can't. There's no real counterplay to that. I basically forced him to make the decision that this is what needs to be gated, and by doing that, I was really able to sort of take control of the board and force his hand, so to speak. And once those 10 Terminators went down, it was just I think that was really the point where the game sort of just started to go really in my favor.
All right. And for yourself, Nick, it was against Jag and his Imperial Knights. And
Yeah.
I remember taking a little glimpse of that. And
Yeah. So, okay. Disclaimer: I'm not a fan of Imperial Knights. Not like I don't have anything against them, as being like what their army is. It's just I find when someone makes a game or an army of knights, like no other detachments or anything, the game becomes a dice roll game rather than a strategic game. I can do what I can to try to hide things from him, but on his end of the game, his tactic is to just shoot things until you're like dead. And because his army consisted of 3 knights, and that was it. So I deployed as I could. I guess I could have tried to focus one side of the board on one knight, but I figured I had enough like POW to take care of one between my priest and my raiders and just mortal wound output that I could take out one. Now he got first turn, and he rolled really well. And every gun he fired, like the volcano cannon, his his big plasma calls wrath, and everything else, anything he shot died. So he killed one of my disintegrators. He killed all of my breachers. He killed a unit of my vanguard. He did some serious damage to my horses. There's a couple other things. Anyway, by the end of his first turn, my punchback was neutered pretty hard. To which my plan was to race to different objectives because you wouldn't be able to hold them all, and plant flags and just
hope for the best, more or less.
Do what I can, and then I put all my money on Fallgright Electric Priest's ability to do mortal wounds, and charged his knight with his I think it was the one with the Thunderfire or the Gatling gun, and I got 20 attacks, and then fought again because I didn't do enough damage. So and after he killed, I think 2. So I got 36 attacks or something along those lines, or something like that. I hit like almost all of them because of my rerolls, and then I wounded him. I think I rolled 4 6s out of all those dice, and like 4 5s, and then on my mortal wounds I rolled all 1s, and then the 5 or the 4 or 5 wounds that I did with the 5s, he saved 2 of them, and I rolled high on those, but it was like I barely degraded him once. From 2 rounds of fighting with the monks, and So at that point, I kind of figured where it was going, and then I needed him to whiff on his second turn, and he did. He just repeated himself, and after the second turn, I had like nothing. So I just was trying to plant flags everywhere I could to guarantee points every round, because he wouldn't be able to take them all down with his just 3 units, and yeah, just kind of died out. He tabled me turn 3 or 4, but I managed to get probably, I think it was close to what, 30 points if you're looking at BCP.
You managed to get, if I look here, one sec, you had 47 points to his 80.
So 37 without the painting, right?
Yes, because we did add the 10 points on for painted armies, yes.
Yeah, so I got that only from primaries and banner.
All right.
I'm not even sure. Like, what secondaries was he taking?
He took in behind enemy lines, or whatever the frig that's one's called, line breaker.
Yeah.
He took grind them down.
Essentially, ones that night players normally would probably take.
Yeah.
I've just never even thought about it. I was just curious.
Yeah, it's the primary game knights should have a hard time with. Secondaries are not that hard. And bring it down.
Yeah, problem is some of your units, like, just sort of get rendered useless against the Knights list, right? Like, your monks aren't going to get that. It's going to be very difficult for them to get that save, that 3-up save.
Yeah.
And mind you, if you pull it off, they're probably good to go for the rest of the game, right? But
the biggest things was, like, my horses aren't going to do anything, and my flyer is just useless in that matchup. Just nothing.
Yeah.
I can't slow him down because he's Titanic, so stratagem to have movement doesn't work.
Yeah,
there's no
3 mortal wounds is just like...
Yeah.
Nothing.
And then I hit as heavy stubbers. So I flew him off the board turn 1 so that he wouldn't be able to kill him turn 2. And, just to like, delay the inevitable.
Yeah, losing your breachers first turn was probably
the
worst thing that could happen.
And one of my disintegrators.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's something to think about going into 2K. Is just if you do run into that night matchup, maybe there's something there in your book.
Yeah.
2 squads of breachers or something. I'm not sure.
Or a more reliable way, just go first.
Yeah, that would probably help. Yes.
Yeah. Why didn't you just roll better?
I don't know why I didn't roll better.
Yeah, just
it's because Jag and his funky ass dice. I'll blame it on.
You just had to roll a bunch of 6s, man. It's easy enough.
I actually rolled really poorly too. Like.
Yeah. Well, we don't blame dice though, right? It doesn't make you a better player.
Nope.
It's not a dice game. It's about what you know what to do, right?
Exactly.
All right, so going into round 2, and here your opponent was Mark and his 1,000 Suns. So from Grey Knights to 1,000 Suns, how did you handle this one?
Well, let me use this opportunity to say that Abhor the Witch is an awful secondary. It needs to go. And I don't sit there and go, I feel bad for taking this. I feel great for taking it because it guarantees you 15 points, but it doesn't make it right. Anyway, so I went with that, and I went first actually, so I was able to get my Tempest in there, and they shot his Hellbrute off, which I would say was probably his best anti-tank, just for dealing with my Impulsors and my Tempests. And it was actually I felt pretty on my heels for round 1 and 2. I mean, he has this, the stratagem to teleport his Rubric Marines. He threw a Helldrake like right in my grill and burned some intercessors with it. And then, he had some small Brimstone squads, or, well, I think they only can be in 10s, but they were just camping objectives, which is always annoying, right? Because you don't really, it's like a 40-point unit or something like that. You don't really want to.
You don't want to be wasting shots. Or...
Yeah, right. So, so turn 1, I mostly just used it to just give them, I use the Tempest the same way I do, just give them a problem to deal with. And the one thing I will say is, after all my upgrades and everything, and once I put the 2 assault intercessor squads in Deep Strike, encirclement, sorry, I'm starting with 3 CP, and to get them to shoot still and get the 3-up invul on them costs 3 CP. So if I do that first turn, so this game I felt like I could get around it because I had got rid of that Hellbrute, which I felt really threatened me. And yeah, just as the game went on, I just stuck with my game plan. I used the mobility of my impulsors. He had the Lord of Change. He took Psychic Ritual on it, and I just kept charging it with my impulsor over and over and over again because basically, if he wanted to Psychic Ritual, he had to stay engaged. So it was just mostly about forcing the hard decisions. I saw where his spawn were going, so I was able to get my Judiciar there with my Smash Captain. And my Smash Captain, it can do upwards of 12 attacks at strength 6. And once Doctrine turns on, he's pumping out 3 damage and attack. Like, he is a fantastic spawn killer. And I think the turn he charged me picked up 4 of the 5. The other thing that was epic about that game is I got my assault intercessors out. Most games I just kept them in the transport turn 1 to protect them, and then deploy scramblers was one of my go-tos. So it was nice to be able to get them out and then move them. Get the mid board one. Get my I usually saved my zone till the end when I felt like it was pretty locked down. So a lot of times my impulsors were just rolling around, one with the Judiciar and one with Con, sort of waiting to see where they were needed. So the one impulsor, I sort of went up the right side and flanked around the back, and that's where I dumped the assault intercessors, and I just used them to pick up all the brimstones. And that impulsor kept charging he had a forge fiend, and I was like trying to charge that and tie that up and everything. And once it got blown off, Khan just went on this friggin' solo mission, dips over, kills our men, takes this far back right corner objective, and I don't know, it just was like it was like the most legendary thing ever. It was just like this solo mission Khan. So anyway, once turn 3 sort of came around, that's when my Doctrine turned on and everything's doing 2 damage, and I was really able to sort of lock it down. I think the final score was 71-60 or something like that.
So it was still close game.
Yeah, it was a real close game. And like I said, I mean, turn 1 and 2, the duplicity Thousand Suns can just get all over the place, right? So it's like you want to stay out of range and you want to stay hidden, and I sort of did a kind of castle deployment in the corner because White Scars have so much mobility that it didn't ever really put me out of the game. But he was definitely able to get on board control and get those objectives. But I just had a game plan. I knew I was going to ignore the Lord of Change and just try to keep charging it as much as I could. And then it was just a matter of just getting his OBSEC. I think the Forge Fiend was still alive at the end of the game. He got pretty aggressive with his Held Drake, and my Smash Captain went and just dealt with that problem. And then, it's just, I was just able to scare myself outside objectives. I didn't really go anywhere near the middle of the table, anywhere near that Lord of Change, because I just didn't want to give it the chance. Because I know if it gets that staff going, I mean, the thing hits Thunderhammers on 2s, basically. It'll wipe out intercessors or anything. So I just, I used my impulsor. I just kept charging it and tying it up and avoided it. And then, it's 300 points that the impulsor was 131. So I feel like it was, it was a pretty decent trade in my favor.
Yeah.
So I think really that he ended up maxing out Psychic Ritual, but I didn't think I'd be able to stop it anyways, because the thing is so resilient. So I just basically just tried to keep it out of my grill and win the battles where I knew I could win them. But it was a good game. It was fun.
Yeah, no, definitely. And for yourself, Nick, you had a chance to go up against Ian and his Grey Knights.
Yeah. If you're listening, sorry, Ian.
That's right. This was a little bit of a rematch from St. John, if I remember correctly.
Yes. So St. John, I fought him first round, and it was, again, Abhor the Witch. I double what Keir said. It's a straight up atrocity for any sort of Psyker army like that. And so obviously I took that, and all this other jazz. Pretty much same shit I chose in St. John I put into this game, because it was the same match. My army's the exact same. His army was very, very close to being the same. So, the difference now is he was rocking that big 10-man blob. He didn't have that before, and he had the 3 paladins. And in our game, he got first turn, and he didn't get to experience the Electro Priest in our game in St. John. The way that the deployment was a hammer and anvil kind of match. I just kind of kept them away and kept my transport with my Fulgurite Priest like in my lines for a counter charge if he were to gate anything to me. And so this game, it was a Dawn of War typical normal deployment kind of thing. So he was a lot closer this time around. And however, he had a lot of small units hiding on objectives, and he placed. He was being timid on his movement because he was worried about a lot of my shooting, and he gated. He did his whole buff thing, his -1 to wound, his other stuff like +1 invuln on his paladin, 3-man paladin, and he gated them to my left flank. That's about the only opening in my deployment zone. That's another strong thing about my list is because I have so many drops, it's really hard to deep strike anything on me. And so he put his 3 paladins on my left flank, which is right next to my monk transport. And I tried to let him know that it was a risky move, and he seemed to have a plan with them. I don't know if he expected he underestimated the damage output of the monks, but so he teleported them in. His shooting phase was kind of lackluster because he stayed in his Heidi Tide
of Shadows.
Yeah, and so he didn't really do much on the first turn. I don't know if he killed anything. Anyway, my turn. Monks get out. They walk over to the paladins and they show them what's what. My bomber flies over his 10-man squad of paladins, unfortunately, and I get some free dead Terminators, and then I have the movement of that unit. Now, that means that 10-man unit of Terminators can no longer gate and charge anything, because they can only charge a max of a 6-inch range because of this half-inch move and charge.
Oh, and he's 9 inches away after being gated.
Exactly. So that makes it so he can't do anything with that unit. So they sat on an objective for a full turn.
Random thought. Do you round up or down?
Round up.
Okay.
So
3-inch and a 5-inch charge?
It's rounded. So the charge, it's half of his charge move, right? So if he could roll double 6s and only get a 6.
Yeah, right. Okay.
But the advance, that would be half of the advance. Anyway, so I neutered that unit. I killed his paladins, and I denied him one of his objectives with my flyer. Just because he only had like a character sitting next to it. Anyway, his next turn, he did the same thing he did in St. John, but a little bit more successfully. He did this whole 3-inch deep strike thing with his Grey Knight character and did inner fire against my breachers, and he rolled dub 6s on the cast, and he gets +2, so he's rolling 14 dice. On 1s, he does a mortal wound to himself, and on a 3, he does mortal wounds to me. And then he has to do D3 mortal wounds on himself with the miscast, or the perils.
Yeah, perils will work.
But he rolled very well this time around, instead of like last time where he rolled 5 ones. He did, I think, 2 mortal wounds. He rolled a 1 on the perils and 1 on the spell. And he pretty much eviscerated my breacher unit with that 1 spell. And but other than that, again, he deep struck the rest of his Terminators that were in deep strike into locations around the map, and he was trying to charge my left flank with with transport that had my Fulgurite Electro Priest. But he only successfully charged with 1 unit, and they didn't even kill the transport if I remember correctly. So on my turn, I countercharged that with the monks. I killed that unit of Terminators. I flew around with my plane again, and I have movement of 5 Terminators, drop bombs and others. And after turn 2, it was kind of game because I got to deny him all of his objectives, if I remember correctly. I had already maxed out aboard the Witch. One of his objectives was engage on fronts, and he had no way of getting to my side of half of the board. But yeah, it was a pretty rough game. I think it ended up 99 to something rather.
99 to 39.
Yeah, it's rough. Grey Knights are in a rough spot with the Board of the Witch.
And And it sucks too because right at the tail end of 8th, like with when the Psychic
Grey Knights
Awakening book came out, like they were like phenomenal for their 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and then 9th hits and they're like, yeah, sorry, we forgot about you.
Yep. Yeah, the Brotherhood of Psychers really helped them too. Now it's 'cause when you have Brotherhood of Psychers going on with that 2 damage smite, that's when it was worth it.
Yeah. Yep. They say the new codex will solve that problem.
Hopefully.
But I don't know. They paid for their sins since what was it, 5th edition? That was their big reign of terror.
Yeah.
That's what everyone talks about, and now they're right back. I mean, they had limited builds to work with, and a lot changed that just didn't help them. I mean, 10-man paladin squads were a thing, and then blast got implemented. You can't fall back and psych, which really hurts the characters because now if you can tag them, if you can tag them, they're stuck. And you don't want your characters to be stuck because that's not a good look at all. Like you don't, they're just stuck. They can't move away because then they can't psych, or they gate themselves out and they're not doing what they want. And then, like you said, the Brotherhood of Psychers. One of their main tides was a 2-damage smite.
Yeah.
Why? So they get a 4, a 5, a 6. They maybe get 3 off. Like it's almost not even worth it to go to that one. You might as well go from Shadows right to the Stormbolter one.
Yeah.
But then to get the most value out of the Stormbolter one, you kind of need to be running those 10-man Paladin bombs.
Mm-hmm.
And then next thing you know, you're subjected. Like my Landspeeder blast weapon is Strength 6, Neg 3, 2 damage. And so that's 18 shots of that. That kills Paladins pretty good. And Terminators, and most blast weapons are like that now too, plasma and all that. So, I mean, a lot of the just inherent 9th edition changes that happen seem to happen even harder to Grey Knights in a not so great way.
Yeah. Alrighty, so going to the final round. This time we'll start with you, Nick, and you actually got a chance to go against Mark with his 1,000 Suns. So I'm starting to see a trend here. You guys had a lot of the same opponents, so let's see your take on the 1,000 Suns list.
Okay.
We only play opponents who we can take a Boar the Witch against.
Yes, that's true.
It seems to get us outgoing now. Easy points, right?
Yeah. This game only had 4 objectives, if I remember correctly, which is an odd one. And it was hammer and anvil, so it was like... Are you okay here?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm good.
Sounds like somebody took a little tumble.
Yeah. Anyway, so it was a hammer and anvil deployment, so it's advantageous for me. I got first turn in that game, first time in the tournament, which was very advantageous for me because I know that as much as the Hell Turkey isn't that great, I know it was the biggest threat to my army for its movement. That is my problem against armies. I'm worried about movement. So, because I got first turn, I managed to fly over his spawn unit and have their movement. So if he teleported them, they wouldn't be able to charge. Same thing with the Terminators. So his spawn unit was rendered useless for the first turn, which was pretty huge. I killed his turkey turn 1, so he couldn't get across the board. And the rest of my turn was just moving up, and then I spent my time firing my Belarus cannons into his brimstones that try to hide and hold objectives. And pepper whatever else I could see, which is pretty much only the Lord of Change. That's his name, right?
Lord of Change.
Yeah. And I pinked off some wounds. It was fine. The first turn wasn't anything to write home about. I had my horses run up and shoot some stuff, but they didn't do that great. I think I whiffed a little bit. I can't remember. I don't think they killed anything. And then his turn, he moved his Lord of Change up, and then teleported his rubrics in a good move to deny me one of my objectives on the left flank. His Lord of Change denied the objective on the right flank, and he killed my bomber. The bomber I had placed right in his line, so when he killed it, I used the Admax stratagem to make it automatically explode, which then killed both the rest of his unit's brimstones, did 3 mortal wounds to his spawn, and nearly killed his wannabe sorcerer. Or aspiring sorcerer, whatever they're called.
The Terminator sorcerer?
Yeah. So I was given his dude's nickname the whole game. And so Sesame Street was the real tough bird guy.
Okay.
And
I like it.
Airman was the only one I didn't give a nickname to, but yeah, he killed I killed one of my transports, did he? I can't remember if he actually killed anything with his Hellbrute. Oh yeah, his Hellbrute killed my bomber. Anyway, his first turn was pretty good. It denied me points, and he just was out of getting engaged in all friends, which was one of the secondaries. My turn 2 was something from hell. It was just a brutal turn. The monks got out. They successfully charged his spawns. My flamers deep struck and killed his wannabe. Um, my I got unreal luck on his rubrics. He's that stratagem really give him +1 invul and everything, and I just wiped the unit with like minimal guns. It was like Vanguard rifles that killed them somehow.
Oh, wow.
And he had like a whole unit of 10, and it was just like everything he was failing his saves. It was pretty brutal. And my monks killed this entire unit of spawns, which then gave me the 3-up invuln, and the spawns were on an objective, so my monks got the 2-up invuln from the stratagem. My raiders, he on his turn killed all but one horse, to which I rolled a 1 on my leadership, which saved him. And then that one horse, with the help of the flyers, charged his hell or demon forge guy, the
Forge Fiend.
Forge Fiend, that's the one.
Yeah.
And so each both charged to shut down the shooting. His Forge Fiend spent his next turn shooting into the horse and combat into the horse and could not kill him.
Old school horse hammer.
Yeah, he took attrition, so he couldn't get points from that. His engage all fronts was denied because I killed his rubrics. His only other forward moving unit was the bird, or Sesame Street. The Zangors popped in, failed to charge on my rear end.
Oof.
Which was the big fail of the game. To which I just kind of turned around and shot them off the board. I killed everything in his army bar the Hellbrute, Airman, and I hadn't actually shot at the Zangors yet when we kind of called it, because at that point it was like he had scored 5 points in primaries in the first turn, and then 3 points for 2 points, 3 points, 2 or 3 points for killing. Oh, he got 1 turn of engagement on fronts with his Zangors, and then he killed my bomber. So he got like 8 or 9 points.
Yeah.
And
He took Bring It Down.
He did take Bring It Down.
Yeah.
And yeah, he only managed to kill my bomber.
Yeah,
And yeah, it was like turn 3 we called it, because on my next turn I was probably going to table him, because the monks were free to charge both the Hellbrute and Airman. The Lord of Change, when I started my third turn, was at 4 HP, and just from Vanguard fire alone, just a weight of fire, I would probably kill him. And that was all he had left. And the Zangors, I could have just focus fired my Scorpius Disintegrators, and they would have died. And yeah, so that was about it. It was a really rough, unfortunate game for him. He wasn't expecting the explosion from my bomber to clear his brimstones, I'm sure.
It was definitely a win in your favor. It was a 95-18 win.
Yeah, it was kind of brutal.
Jeez.
And then on your game, you pretty much had top table against Jonah and his Death Guard.
Yeah. So I think a couple things worked in my favor in that matchup. Having blast weapons, because all his troop choices were over 5, I was able to put a lot of work in them. So I lost the roll-off. So he went turn 1. He picked up one of my speeders and kind of just sort of moved his ball of death towards me, so to speak. On my turn, I was able to use those 2 speeders, cleared out some Poxwalkers, cleared out his Nurglings that were on the mid-board objective. There was just 4 objectives. And I was able to get a charge off on his Plague Burst Crawlers. He had parked one right beside a building, and I was able to use a stratagem for my Smash Captain. I kind of threw him away, but in the my plan was to just sort of keep them from shooting, because the mortars, you can't really, like, they can shoot anything. They don't need line of sight, right? So I didn't want to just like, I wanted to minimize the amount of time that was just plowing into me. So between the impulsor and the smash captain, I was able to quote unquote try point him between a wall and the captain and the impulsor, and that captain also engaged a second plague burst crawler too. So on his shooting turn, he just had to shoot the captain, which was fine. He killed it. I stopped two plague burst crawlers from shooting anything else that turn, which to me seemed like a victory.
Big time.
So at that point, we were on the second turn. He was getting, basically trying to take mid board and hold those three objectives. I had my own objective and the one on the right. I just had rather than being super aggressive with my speeders, I just parked them on my home objective, because he didn't have anything to sort of zip in there and contest it like my prior games. If I left it, if I did that against the Grey Knights or the Thousand Suns, he has deep strikes coming in. They had deep strikes and things coming in that could have just came and taken that from me, but he didn't have that. Everything was just moving towards me. So I was able to lead them back there, and they had enough range, 24-inch, 36-inch, and the blast weapons. So they just basically worked on troops all game and sort of sat there. And I kept Con at the back too, because I knew that was his plan. He was sort of coming up to my left, and it seemed like he was just trying to go to take control of that side of the board and own the middle. And I knew that if I got into combat with the Plague Marines, it was just my impulsors and land speeders that are very easily chop through all that. So I wanted to keep a little bit of punch back. Then turn two, my deep strikes came in. I had an assault intercessor squad in my plasma. He had exposed his characters, at which point I took my land speeders and flew them over and dropped my plasma inceptors in there, and I was able to pop the two characters I needed to that were forcing me to fight last and giving them the 5-up invol. And on the right side, I had more assault intercessors coming in, my Judiciaire, my chaplain. I had taken Assassinate, because I think he ran something along the lines of 7 characters, maybe. So I knew there was a good chance. I mean, outside of characters, he pretty much just had 3 Plague Burst Crawlers, 2 Squads 8 Plague Marines, and 10 Poxwalkers. I don't even think he had anything else, and the rest were just characters. So I knew as White Scars, my mobility could definitely expose that. I mean, if he wanted to protect his characters, he'd basically be conceding the board to me, because there was no way he could accomplish both. So coming up the right side, I was able to get in. My chaplain and Judiciaire had enough punch to be able to take out a Plague Burst Crawler. Like I said, I had taken out his Foul Blight Spawn and Noxious Bladebringer. And yeah, I mean, I had my Assault Intercessors. They were able to do work once turn 3 came around. I mean, but by the end of turn 2, I had maxed out on engage in all fronts. I was comfortably holding 3 objectives. He had 5 Plague Marines coming up to contest my home objective, but I had just been using impulsors to just body lanes, make them take the long route repeatedly, which was kind of, and when we go back to like my list building, I really like the fly keyword for Scars specifically. And it's kind of, like Outriders, I know they're great, but I've kind of just sort of leaned on that because they're such a mobile army, and the only thing that could possibly stop them is not taking fly, because then things can start bodying you. So that's sort of how I built my list, and everything was just basically free to move wherever it wanted to. I mean, you can screen it out however you want and everything, but the speeders are moving 35 inches. I had deep strike blast weapons coming in, and by turn 3, it was just it was pretty much at the point where I was just trying to max out my objectives and clean up what was left. I think all he had left was a Plague Burst Crawler. I don't know. He didn't have much by the end of the game. It really, I think it just came down to a point where if I killed a certain character, that was all I could do in my last turn to max out my secondaries. And I was able to do that. So that's pretty much how that went.
Yeah. And pretty much end score of that one, you had an 84 to his 44.
Yeah, I made that was an error on my point. Well, I was holding a middle objective, and I had to get back to my zone with an infantry unit to deploy scramblers. And I basically realized turn 4 that I had stuck myself in a position where I was either going to hold enough objectives to keep them from scoring on the primary, or I was going to give up that objective to go back and deploy scramblers for 10 points. And I just sort of decided that the swing of me denying him the points was worth more than me going back for the extra 10. So that's pretty much what happened there.
And especially where you were still up quite comfortably at that point anyways, so.
Yeah, I mean, I maxed out Assassinate. I maxed out Engage in all fronts. I think by turn 4 for sure. By my turn 4 command phase, I think at that point I had maxed out my primary too. So it was basically, at that point, the game was sort of decided, I would say. I just think, he just wasn't able to handle the mobility. There were a few mistakes or hot plays on my part. I'm not sure how you would describe it, but there were a few key moments in that game where I really capitalized on some opportunities that really leveraged the game in my favor.
And that's the thing with Death Guard. Like, they can take a punch, but where you have so much mobility, there's no way for them to keep up with you. So that definitely played huge in your favor.
Yeah, I think one of the things with White Scars is, like I said, going back to the fly thing, they're an army where if you aren't really thinking about your movement phase, they're going to get places you probably didn't expect them to get. And a lot of what I do is my list didn't have very much punch. I mean, the 2 blast weapons did some work, but I mean, I was basically banking on my smash captain and my chaplain to do all my heavy lifting for damage. But the thing is using charges to get extra movement is very beneficial in this edition.
Big time.
So a lot of my list, I didn't really care if my stuff was going to charge and kill you. I just cared that I was able to charge you. And if you got charged, I was either stopping you from shooting next phase or forcing you to spend some CP or stopping you from psyching. And, I've heard a lot of talk about how, and I'm not sure if this is still the feeling, but at the beginning of this edition, everyone was kind of going on about how melee's dead and all that. But I think assault armies are really good right now, because as far as playing the objective goes, you can use charges to get that extra movement. And if you're playing assault armies, a lot of the times, you can hang, you can get in there and you can hang, you know what I mean? Whereas like, if you're not playing those assault armies and you're banking on shooting and your stuff gets charged, it's kind of just like, okay, I'm going to swing back at this unit with 12 strength 4, no AP, 1 damage. You know what I mean? Like, it's not really...
Especially now where you're having to pay the CP to actually overwatch, unless you're Tau, of course, with their special ability. But like you're saying, the assault just got that much better by not having everything being shot at while being charged.
Right. And I mean, that's another thing, is even in 8th edition, when you could overwatch free reign, I just set my impulsors in first. So the change to Overwatch was kind of a big deal, but you could totally build around it. And I mean, that's part of it too, is, I mean, I'm not going to lead the charge with my smash captain into like 10 rubric marines. You know what I mean? I'm basically like, that's an easy CP for you to spend because you'll kill them, right? There's a little bit of it to that, but again, a lot of it for me was just, I don't care. I charge stuff all the time with things that would just mitten fist them, right? Like impulsors, lance beaters, none of that stuff does damage, but it ties you up and it keeps you from, doing what you were originally planning to do. And, I think White Scars, sort of gel with my mentality. And I think that's sort of, I built my list, like I said, with the fly, so I couldn't be held back. And, yeah, I don't know. It's fun. It's a lot of fun to play that list. I'll tell you that.
Oh, definitely. All right. Well, once again, a huge congratulations to you guys taking top 2 spots at the tournament. And hopefully soon we'll have a little bit more information on our Winter Bash. We're probably leaning towards the end of January, beginning of February. I know a lot of times weather can play a huge factor into that. But the next event will be 2,000 points. And once we can solidify what's going to be going on, we'll be having all the information on our Facebooks. So thank you, Keir and Nick, for joining me on today's episode and going through your list and your matches.
Thanks a lot for having me, man.
Yeah, thanks. It was a pleasure.
All right, we'll be talking to you guys later, and everybody have a good night. Bye.